Right.
Let's go ahead and get started on our meeting. This is the use variance for 23 to 25 West Main Street. This is the, we're just gonna talk about where we were last time and see if we, when we thought about it a little more and the little bit more information I've gathered, whether we want to go forward. Does anyone feel like they need to recap, or are you guys good with the minutes in terms of like where we were last time? Does it recap, no, or yes? No, okay. Yeah, good.
The minutes are all done, thank you.
All right, sweet. All right, so we're all up to speed in terms of where we are in terms of what we're talking about. What I do want to talk about is to touch base on last time we went through those 4 tests, and we were pretty clear about it, but we decided we wanted to come back to one of the tests. We want to come back to test number 2. And I sent out some information in terms of, I asked the county planning department, basically how you look at the unique property. This is the point that we're looking at here. I'm gonna share my screen real fast just to show, oh, you need to enable me, Jenny. Basically to look at the language on that unique testing, okay? So what it is basically, it's that the alleged hardship relating to the property in question is unique. And that's where we got hung up last time, what is unique, okay? And the village law had a slightly different language than the state guidelines, which we were using as our framework last time. The village guidelines were, and does not apply to a substantial portion of the district or neighborhood. So in terms of this duplex, you know, we might think about it as, is it unique in terms of it doesn't apply to a larger area? Basically, if you could allow the use variance in this one situation, is it just going to allow the usage in this one house, or we're going to be looking at a cascading effect across all R1, whole R1 zone? And that's kind of like a distinction how I was thinking about, you know, this is going to work out, like in terms of what we're looking at for the unique distinction on that in that regards. What do you guys think? Like basically when we think about unique, we kind of like, you know, the county planning, Jason Fotenhauer, the county planning office came back, said unique is an interesting one. It really ties into like hardship. It ties into like, you know, you look at the surrounding neighborhood, at the other usage in the neighborhood, but also the R1 district. I mean, the R1 district, if we start thinking about duplexes in town, do we have a lot of duplexes even in the village itself? You know, I think we talked about this briefly last time, but I struggled to come up with, you know, duplexes themselves in the village. Things with 2 entrances that are kind of built that way and are pre-existing. Can you guys, I mean, yeah,
There's one on Pine Street that I can think of right off the top of my head. There's one on Pearl Street. I think, you know, to go through, there's more than what you think.
Yeah, that's what
there
I was
are.
Okay. Is there one on Judson too? The blue one with the funky entrances, like just down the street from you, Sally? That one? Or is that a single family? I can't remember.
It's a single family.
Okay, that's a single.
Yeah, the chalet,
yeah,
sort of, yeah. No, yeah. That's a single family. At one time, it was a duplex.
Oh, okay.
At one
There's
time.
One on Buck Street, right?
Mm-hmm.
Near Buck.
Yeah, that just sold. Mm-hmm.
Next to Valerie Ingram.
There's also Service Master. That's West Street.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I can think of a handful.
Okay, cool. All right. And Caitlin, did you want to chime in there?
Yes, I was just going to say that I was reading more of the information that you sent, and I just wanted to say, I guess maybe at the last meeting, I think I was really hung up on this, the whole uniqueness of it, and just thinking that, you know, he bought this and it was already that way. And then at the time the zoning came out and everything like that. But then based on the information that you just sent us recently, I think I am a little bit more swayed to saying it's not really that unique.
Because the zoning was in place when he bought that.
Yeah, so
You
I
know,
think I just wanted to let people know, I guess I'm understanding it a little bit better.
But
Okay.
that's
What
fine.
Conrad just said.
Thank you. Mhm.
Yeah, and I have a different understanding now with this new information, so.
Yeah, well, that's fine. That's why we talk about these things, because, you know, a lot of these things are, you know, we don't live and breathe, you know, is this building unique? You know, it's not really, you know, we do our best with use variances. And the other thing, I think the thing on the use variance side too, you know, on this uniqueness is, you know, there's other things like the hardship ones, the essential character of the neighborhood. We were pretty happy with a bunch of things, but the uniqueness one was, it hung us up a little bit, you know. The self-created one was an interesting one. The self-created one was the fourth point, and we felt like it was not self-created by him. We felt like this is it existed and it just happens, but it wasn't his fault, you know, in some ways. So, you know, that was an interesting point, I thought. So just so we know just so we're very clear about what this process means right now. One of the things came out on like October 29th, like right after our meeting, when I started to look into this, it became clear that we had to apply to the applicant needed to apply to county planning to get approval for this property to go forward to be used. Okay. This because it basically anything in the village that has a change in the variance it's within 50 feet of a state highway needs county oversight. So because it's right on State Highway 68, it needs county oversight. The applicant has not submitted that paperwork as of yet to the county. However, that said, if we make any decision we make is predicated on the county decision. So if we approve it to be a use variance, it's not approved until the county says it's okay. Okay. So if the county agrees with us, it goes through. If the county disagrees, it comes back to us to see if we want to override it or not. Okay. So basically we can move forward with it without the county stuff, or we can, you know, or we can table it for longer. I mean, that is also an option, but I'd rather see if we can reach a consensus tonight and see if we can, you know, put this to bed for a little bit and move on. You know, so that basically the county side is basically, you know, if we make a decision, it's there, but it's still waiting for that county input because it has to have a county input from the county planning, just so we know, just so we're very clear on that. Okay. Okay. So where are we then? I mean, on this property itself, if we just talk through quickly, basically, if we look at those 4 tests, you know, just to make sure, I mean, the reasonable return, the applicant cannot realize a reasonable return, provided, you know, last time we were like, yeah, the applicant cannot receive a reasonable return. Okay. We were like, okay, that one's fine. Is that basically where we are this time as well? Or do you want to go through each one? Do you want to talk about the property itself? Do you feel like, how should we proceed as a board? Like, where are we, you know, this is not like, I don't have an answer on this.
Kind of, I'll start just because I think this is hard. I mean, this is the difficulty of the zoning board all of the time, right? We have to make difficult decisions. We're in a tough spot. For me, it's hard. We created these zoning rules for a reason. We're trying to enforce them. This is an opportunity for us to try to revert back to what the original intent was of the neighborhood. And at the same time, I understand it was a duplex when he bought it. So I'm conflicted on that front. But at the same time, I think if we as a village are committed to trying to enforce these zones and help neighborhoods flourish, we should be trying to follow the original zoning guidelines as much as we possibly can, and not providing variances every single time we come together.
Right.
That said, I voted for a number of variances since I've been on the board, and I understand that the circumstances occur. So
Right.
I'm not saying I wouldn't, but just generally as I come into this issue, not looking at the 4 issues. But as I come into it, I think about it from that perspective. If we want to encourage, it to be, its original intent of an R1 district, we ought to try to encourage, home ownership, individual, residents, that kind of thing. And but again, we have to go through all these. I didn't vote last time. Mike was here and I didn't have to. So.
And I think that's the rub of it. I think that summarizes really well in terms of what our role is. It basically, we look at it holistically. We look at the zoning holistically and we say, all right, this is what we feel. And then the state says, but we can't just go based on that. We have to go through the 4 tests to make sure that we're doing that. I mean, basically, and the state has its reasons and the village has its reasons in terms of statute, in terms of like how we have to go through that. And that's just, exactly. That's the fun game of being on the zoning board of appeals. Right? Yeah, Debbie.
He bought the property from an individual directly. It did not go through a realtor. Do we know how long that property had been vacant before he bought it? Did it already lose the grandfather clause?
Oh, in 2009. Interesting. Because he purchased in 2010, right?
Yes.
Was it an estate sale?
I'm really not sure, what if it was an estate, if Randy was the owner, I'm really not certain what the circumstance.
Yeah.
Okay. I use Zillow as research, so I only know roughly when he bought it and what he paid for it based on Zillow. I have no idea who he bought it from.
Yeah, and then the vacancy aspect is hard to pin down because of
because it may have already lost its status when he purchased it.
Right, but no one questioned it because
That's right.
It wasn't clearly vacant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, one thing is, if we do move forward and approve, part of the rub for me is it's built as a duplex right now. But the other side of the coin is there are 2 driveways, there are 2 entrances, but there's only 1 service in that building right now. When you walk by it, the meter at 25 has been pulled. So it's, I think that, that it's a little weaker in the argument of, a duplex when you only have 1 electrical service to the building.
I thought I saw his application. I don't have his application in front of me. I thought the application said 2 services.
The application, I read that today. The application was pretty clear, I think, not talking about services, talking about entrances.
Okay.
2 addresses and 2 I thought the same thing, and I went back. 2 addresses and 2 driveways. When I did a quick drive-by yesterday or day before, I was like, oh, what does this property look like from the outside? And I was kind of surprised that the meter at 25 had been pulled. I don't know when it's pulled. And it could be the fact that basically they discovered that they had a blended panel somewhere, that they had to go down to 1 meter for that reason, right? I don't know. So that's an interesting issue. But a meter, it's all there for a meter. You can put a meter back in. So,
and my understanding was at one period of time, an owner lived in one side and rented the other half, more like an accessory apartment than a duplex.
Right. Exactly, and that's how it morphed into this structure. It was an accessory apartment, and then evolved into rentals for endgame, which is students in this case. So, so if we do turn it down, right? And I think the fair point is basically if it fails one of the 4 tests and it gets denied, the use variance gets denied, we're asking this landlord the landlord can rent out half, right? You can still rent half of it, up to 3 people. Basically, still you'd follow the regulations for an R1 rental, which is up to 3 people. unrelated, of course. But the other half would have to be either converted back into a single family, or, or something would have to be done to it. Okay. But when we're talking about if there are, 5 or 6 other properties in the village in R1 districts, that would be in a similar situation, that they're non-conforming usage, right now, because of duplexes and R1s. So if we grant a use variance, does that set the precedent that basically they could then apply to have a use variance if they were vacant? I mean, right now they don't have to go for a use variance because they have a non-conforming usage that it perpetuates. Yeah. I'm not sure. Is it better for the neighborhood to be in a situation where with this duplex as a duplex, or as a single family? Or is a building that needs renovation to come back to a single family?
Well, in regards to the neighborhood, I feel, that it would be better for it to be single family, owner occupied versus.
I mean, there is nothing.
Is it going to need work to bring it back into it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when he did all the renovations, he left it as a 2-unit. And
right. So, I mean, in theory, would it work in the zoning if it was owner occupied in half and the other half was a rental unit as an accessory apartment? I mean, in theory, that would be a suitable usage in our zoning.
And it would, and I know the Pearl Street property was owner occupied for a very long period of time.
That's how I read the code. I thought that would be true, and it would seem like a reasonable opportunity for somebody.
Right.
A young starting couple, to get into the market.
Handy. Yeah. I think handiness would be key in that equation.
But, with those young people, they have families and they outgrow them. And
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else that we can think of that we want to touch base on this application? Do we feel like we've been through the things?
I didn't look at the listing that closely. How did she have it listed? Did she list it? Is she trying to market it as a duplex? Is she?
Oh, interesting.
I'm going to skip out and I'm going to go to the MLS system, because there's a place where it says agent remarks.
Oh, yeah, do that.
Okay, so
right,
I'll be back.
All right.
Okay, I'll be back with you in a sec.
I did read it. It does not say duplex anywhere. It does say 6
Well,
bedrooms.
it might. See, there's a place for agent remarks.
No, you should. I'm interested, Deb. Yeah.
And it's likely that there's something. Okay, let me see. Okay. Here we go.
Sally, how you doing? Got to unmute.
I'm doing quite well, thank you.
Good.
This property, my feeling is he's an absentee landlord and doesn't take care of his property, which is not good for the neighborhood. So, and it is classified as an R1, which is one family property. And right now I have my personal opinions on that, because I wouldn't want to live next door to someone like that.
Right.
Property. So, when we get ready to vote, we do.
Yep.
Other than that, I'm so grateful we have Debbie.
Yeah, it's very helpful.
Well, I don't know about that. She has it listed as a residential. Under agent, historically, this home has been a 2-family. During the last year, the owner completed many updates because it took longer than he anticipated. The grandfather clause for the 2-family expired.
So it's very clear.
Yep.
Well, good for her.
Yep.
I mean, that sounds like she's taking care of that then.
It does.
Debbie, do you think that it would take a long time to sell that property with everything that's going on now?
No, the market is very strong. And at this price, I'm going to be honest with you. I can pull the file. When I went up, I met with the contractor. He was expecting $140,000 for this. And that could be another reason why I didn't get the listing, because I told him that was just, the price was very, very aggressive, and I could not foresee that happening. So, but now it's listed at, 89. I don't think it's going to be on the market long.
It's a good price.
It is, yes.
Yeah. Yep.
So if someone bought that, they would still be able to rent the other part as an apartment, as long as the owner lived in the other side.
Well, I think that has to be determined, correct?
Yeah, I think that I wouldn't want to market it that way. I would basically, I would let Jeff handle that one. But that was my read on the code was that if it's an accessory apartment, then it'd be acceptable. But I would be very clear that we'd have to let the code enforcement officer handle that decision.
Correct.
And if it came to us, it came to us. But it would be the code, Jeff would handle that decision. But yeah, that was my read on it would be that I would look into that more. If I was looking at that parcel for this idea, I would ask some questions about that approach.
Mm-hmm.
So Caitlin, how you doing? You doing all right?
Yes.
Perfect.
Taking it all in.
All right. All right. So are we comfortable? Do we want to go ahead and talk through these tests real fast, or that's just the second test? Do you just want to look at, we had this, we voted last time. If we're comfortable with where we were last time with our vote, we could just move on and say we've got more information, we're comfortable with where we are, or I can go through each of the 4 tests again, and we can revote. What are we more comfortable with? All tests, 1 test, or no tests? What do you guys think? Yeah, Caitlin.
I would just say I think I'm comfortable just revisiting the unique or uncommon situation, because in my opinion, I think that I'd end up changing my vote.
Okay. Does that sound comfortable to everyone else? We'll just look at the unique situation. Is that agreeable?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So where we stand right now, so since we're comfortable with that, let me just make sure that we're all on the same page, reading the same thing. We are looking at from the last meeting, the first test dealing with the cannot return to its, the investment side. This is the test itself. Let me make sure I'm looking. Reasonable return. The applicant can't realize a reasonable return. We voted we agreed to get a reasonable return. Okay, so we passed that test, number 1. Number 3, which we're also not talking about now, number 3 was the test on the essential character of the neighborhood. We felt like it would not change the essential character that was granted. Number 4 was not self-created. We felt like there wasn't self-created. And we came back to the uniqueness test. Now, the uniqueness test, just to make sure, is that the alleged hardship relating to the property in question is unique. So this hardship in a situation where it's basically, it has to be used as an R1 rather than a duplex in the zone, okay? Is it unique? It does not apply to a substantial portion of the district or the neighborhood, okay? So that's the point that we're talking about. And I think that people are comfortable at this stage voting on this one. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So what we're going to say is in this situation on this number 2, basically, if it's unique, it's a yes vote. Okay, you say yes, it's unique. If say no, it's not unique. Now, if it's all no's, if we get a quorum on no's, then it fails the test. We go from there. Okay, so yes vote, it's unique, and it does not apply to a substantial portion of the neighborhood. Okay.
See, the key word for me is substantial. I just sold a house over on Mildon Drive.
Yeah.
And
area.
it-
Yep.
Okay, and it had an apartment.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's right on the corner of Milden and Power or whatever that was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yep.
Okay, it was very clearly stated by Jeff that no, there was no way that they could rent that out.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and me, I'm just saying, if they can't do it,
Yeah. Right. Okay. Andy?
Just a point of clarification, because I didn't vote last time,
Mhm.
and Mike did. Are we okay not going through all 4 and using his vote? He's already voted on the issue, so if we accept his vote on all 4, are we okay? I don't need to vote here, or,
What we'll do is we will see how the other 3 votes play out, Andy.
okay,
And knowing how Mike voted on the last time, I'll either accept it or basically if we have 3 votes in one direction or the other, then the last 2 in many ways don't matter.
okay, thank you.
So I will reserve you not voting for now, since you did
No
not
problem.
vote in the other meeting. If we do have to move forward, then we'll figure that out. That's unreasonable to everyone. All right. All right, so just a yes vote means it is unique, and a yes vote means basically that it's a substantial portion of the neighborhood. It does not apply to a substantial portion of the neighborhood. We're going to pass this test. A no vote means it is not unique, and it would impact. Okay, so yes votes. Let's raise our hand among Sally, Debbie, and Caitlin. Cool. Any yes votes? Okay, no votes. No votes. Any no votes? Okay. Yeah, there you go. Are you waving, Sally? Yeah, you got it.
Yeah,
All right.
I
So
guess I didn't get my hand.
there you go. Good. I got like the fingers. I was like, hello.
just as long as you got fingers and not just one, you're okay.
Yeah, exactly. Right. The choice finger.
The choice finger.
Yeah. All right. So we're looking at.
Thanks.
Sorry, I'm just trying to bring a little humor to this.
You should.
You did.
So, all right. So based on that vote, basically, we are saying that it is failing the uniqueness in the situation. Okay. So it's a unique hardship. We feel it's not a unique hardship. And it's an R1 district, and the duplex, this property is not going to pass for the use variance. Okay. We can let the record show that basically on the recheck on number 2, Jenny, we had Sally, Debbie, and Caitlin vote a no. In that situation, we did not need to go to our alternate, Andy, to help us make a decision. We had a majority voting opposed to the unique situation for number 2. Okay. Great. We will keep basically that's the only one we're going to revisit since we're comfortable with our decisions on the other 3 points. Is there anything else that we need to talk about today? But basically what I'll do at this point is I'll be writing up this decision. Our decision is to deny the use variance for 23 to 25 West Main Street in the Village of Canton. That decision will be written up plus or minus the 28th or 29th of this month. Okay, and I'll send it out to make sure you guys can check it out, and then we'll get it off to the applicant from there and for publication. Any questions on this stuff?
No, the only comment that I have is that, my decision was based on other properties, and I know there's not a lot, but there's been 2 that I can think of right off the top of my head that they were told flat out, no, the grandfather clause was gone. They wouldn't be allowed to do it. And I just think we're opening up a can of worms by allowing, we're setting precedents if we were to allow him or any future owners to be able to use it as such. And I'm sorry, I love Canton, and I just, having seen what goes on with income properties, I just don't feel it should be allowed. So
And I think that the key thing is we looked at our 4 tests fairly and cleanly, and we discussed our 4 tests, and we feel as a board that it did not meet the criteria as required by the Village of Canton statute and by New York state law, allowing us to grant a use variance. And that is the key thing. A use variance is a very specific situation where you're allowed a certain use, a non-allowed use in a district. And I think that is key. So we looked at this, we were comfortable with this, we revisited it, we've got more information and different language around what unique meant. And I think that we're very comfortable with this at this point. And we're good from there. Okay?
Yeah.
Thanks. Awesome. All right. So Jenny, you can go ahead and stop recording, and we can say thank you to Sally. Sally is retiring from the board at the end of this month.